All right. Today we are fortunate to be joined with Coach Masaki Matsumoto, and he's a guy that I've had a chance to get to know a little bit over the last number of years, and highly, highly respect him as a man. And as a football coach, you're not going to find many better either. He coached for a while in California, did a phenomenal job down there, and then. And that was a school that had a lot of minority groups there. And then he's now been at Lincoln High School in Tacoma, and also a group that has a lot of minority groups, and different groups though in each school. And I wouldn't mind having you touch on that a little bit later if you get the chance. But he absolutely just pours his life into the players on his team and the coaches on his staff. And when I get a chance to go listen to him speak to his team when he brings his team up to our passing tournament, I never miss the opportunity. So, Masaki, it's a pleasure to have you with us. If you want to just share a little bit about your background and then specifically how race and racism may have impacted your own life.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, Coach. And I echo the same thing about you. And you've been a respected coach for a long time. And, I kind of know you through Coach Shapiro as well. And, you've done a heck of a job with that program up there at Lakewood. So send back to you, Coach. And like I said, thank you for having me on. I kind of have a unique story, and that I was born in Japan, and I came to America when I was about 7. My mom wanted to start a new life over with, after her divorce, and she came into our living room. My brother and I were watching TV. He's 5 years older, and she said, "I'm going to America. You can stay with your dad, or you can come with me." And my brother, being a little bit older, wanted to stay with dad because he had some friends and stuff like that that he's established in Japan. But I was only 7 years old and kind of a mama's boy, so I said, "I'm gonna go with you, Mom." And we ended up in Seattle, and so obviously pretty unique situation. And I would say sports has played a huge role in my life. One, because of the men I've had, who kind of became a father figure, and kind of filled that role because I didn't have a dad. And Jim Shapiro being one of them, Coach Lambert at Trinity, where I played college ball, is another one, and just a bunch of mentors that I've met throughout my coaching career. But also sports played a big role because of the language barrier and the cultural difference, that I had to face when I first got here, especially the first 2-3 years, because sports was one thing that I could relate to, the American kids with. And, during recess, playing soccer, basketball, and then learning football, language didn't really matter. And really the only time that it didn't matter, and so I would say, looking back, it had a big impact on me. And so, yeah, I kind of grew up, just an average kid in the suburbs. My mom, got some help from my grandma, and was able to put me into a private school when I hit middle school, which is King's High School, that, very well. I got a good education, and I became a believer after a couple years of attending King's. And then obviously played football since 3rd grade, and again, a big part of my life. And then I got an opportunity to go play college football at Trinity in Chicago, and had a great career there, met some great people. Again, a great coach, Coach Lambert. And when I was done there, I went to grad school in San Diego, and that's when I got my master's in special ed and my credential in special ed. And that's when I actually started coaching, because when I was going to grad school, someone at church who works at Cathedral Catholic High School, one of the powerhouse schools down there, she asked me if I wanted to help their JV team, because she knew I played college football and she knew I was maybe available. And so I was like, you know what, classes are at night. I think I have time. So I started coaching and just kind of fell in love with it. And I've been kind of coaching ever since. And when grad school was over, I needed to find a teaching job now, and I didn't want to come back to Seattle yet. I really enjoyed Southern California, but there was nothing in San Diego, so I applied to Los Angeles Unified School District, and there I found out there was a brand new school that was opening in 2008, and they needed special ed teachers. So I applied. I knew they would probably need coaches as well because it's a new school, and so I thought it was the perfect school for me. And so, I applied and got the job as a teacher. Became the head track coach, and then became an assistant football coach because they already had a head coach by then. And that was really my first experience with inner city, just kids, and really inner city culture, inner city life, because like I told you, I went to a private school from middle school on, and grew up in the suburbs, and we weren't rich by any means, but middle class, did fine. And it was just crazy to me to see kids being okay with F's and D's, kids ditching classes. I would be walking around campus and I would see kids, in the back hiding, and, kids saying, Coach, I may not graduate. It was just like so crazy to me, and I think that's the reason why I became pretty effective right away, because I was so naive to those ideas that I was like, no, that's not that can't happen. Like every single one of my classmates at King's graduated, and like not graduating is not something that can happen. And so I just attacked it. I got on kids, and I was younger back then, so I was a little more fiery, so I would go at him and be like, what are you doing? You're already at school. Why are you ditching? Like, you're already here, go to class. And whether I knew it, whether I did it subconsciously or consciously, I just really held kids accountable, and called them out and got on them, especially if they were on my, track team or on the football team, even if I wasn't a head coach. And so, I was there for 4 years as an assistant, and then we went 4-36. Not a fun 4 years, but the principal asked me if I wanted to take over because they were going to go in a different direction, and I said, you know what, let me think about it over the weekend. And I emailed the head coach at Cathedral, who had become a mentor now, and I just asked him, Coach, like, I'm only I'm only 28, and I don't know if I'm ready to take over an inner city program, and struggled, and and so I wrote him a long email, and what he wrote back to me is something I'll never forget. He said, Masaki, I've been at Cathedral my whole life. Like, I've never coached inner city kids, but what I do know is whether it's inner city kids or private school kids, they just want to be loved. Mm-hmm. And that kind of hit me really hard. And I said, you know what, like, I love these kids, and I think, I can do that. And so that Monday I took the job, and, we turned the program around. We went 8-3 first year, and then went to the playoffs all 3 years, and then was really loving my situation there. But at the same time, in 2015, started thinking about needing to come home because my mom's still up here in Shoreline. And that's when I started kind of researching some jobs, and I didn't really want to take a random job, just to move, because we had built something special at Bernstein. But and nothing was really there. And so I had kind of given up, and this was like now January of 2015. And I figured, okay, I'm probably going to be back at Bernstein. And then Coach Shapiro emailed me the article of Coach Kitna leaving Lincoln. And he said, hey, this will be perfect. It's a pretty good program now that he, kind of turned around. He put some money into it, and it's inner city, just like Bernstein. I think you would excel here. Mm-hmm. So I kind of researched the school, liked it, emailed the principal that night, and he called me back a couple days later, did a Skype interview, and got the job and came up around April of 2015 and just finished our 5th season. And just has been again another eye-opening experience because the second part of your question, Coach, just at Bernstein it was 98% Hispanic, and it's LA, so obviously that population is big, but now here it's like truly, I think they said that Lincoln is the most diverse school in Washington,
Right.
and I mean we got a bunch of, I think it's, last time I heard it was like 25% Caucasian, 25% African American, like 20% Latino, and then we got some Samoans and we got Asians, and it's pretty diverse, and our team is pretty diverse. So it was different getting used to that as well, and but yeah, like I said, I mean, they're amazing kids, and I've learned a lot being here, and so that's kind of my journey, Coach.
Yeah. So it takes a guy born in Japan that comes over and brings in this mix of the most diverse school in Washington, and the key thing that stood out to me is kids just want to be loved, right? And my guess is you're not letting them get away with excuses on things. You're just holding them accountable regardless of the situation. Knowing you and seeing what I see you post on Twitter and all those kind of things. Would you touch on maybe accountability and expectations and what that has done in your programs?
Yeah. So, like I said, at first, and I would still say it's still part of, big part of my personality. So it kind of naturally comes out. But at first it was just like, this is the way I did it, and, I'm not, I didn't grow up poor or, in an inner city setting, but I was an immigrant. I was raised by a single mom, and, that was not an easy situation, and learning to speak English, etc. But what I knew helped me was just what was my work ethic, and I still say to this day, Coach, like, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I'm really not. I'm one of those guys who has to read a paragraph like 3 times for me to understand it. Mm-hmm. Right. But how I make up for that, or try to make up for that, is through discipline and hard work, and like the things we tell our kids, like, you can control that, you can not be able to control being smart, but you can control working hard. And I mean, it's not something I just say to the kids. I truly believe it because I did that, and so when I first got to Bernstein, like, I didn't really care that they came from a broken home or that they had a tough life, because again, like, I didn't have an ideal situation either, but I was able to, just hard work, right? And surrounding yourself with like good people and just all the things that, again, I feel like, if you look hard enough, like, are available to you, and so I just kind of drove that and just didn't let them make excuses, and I remember, like, a couple years into it, we made T-shirts, and on the back it said, "Nobody feels bad for you," because in my life, I've seen, once you leave the bubble of high school, like, really no one cares, like, if you don't produce results, like, you're not going to get the promotion, you're going to get replaced, et cetera, and no one's going to say, "Oh, you had a tough background, okay, you'll get a second chance." Maybe at the high school level, yes, because we're still working with kids and nurturing kids, but after that, no one cares about your background, and your upbringing and how hard it was, and no one asks you for, on the resume, like, tell me your background. They want credentials, and achievement. And so I've always just kind of stressed that. And now I think there's got to be a balance now, well, I say now because I'm starting to, be a little bit wiser and learn from experience, but you need both love and accountability.
Right.
Right? Like, I think some coaches lean too much, and I probably did at Bernstein, probably too much accountability, and maybe I showed them my love through just my time, because all I did was commit to those kids, because I was younger and, I was able to. But now I try to really intentionally show them love, by loving them up, hugging them up, encouraging them, but also accountability, because I think, like I said earlier, like coaches have one or the other too much, and I think you need equal balance. And I always say, like, when I go speak, like, if you have just too much love, like, people will be, you guys will be singing Kumbaya songs, but you won't have a good program, right? But if you have too much accountability, you have, at least resentment, burnout, right? Kids just resenting, and so I think what I've gotten better at in the last few years is combining both, because if you love them, then they'll let you hold them accountable,
Right.
And I spoke on it last week. I think, again, where I've gotten better is explaining to them the why, and again, if they know that I'm getting on them, not because I'm like taking out my personal, stuff on them. I'm getting on them because I want them to succeed. That it's effective, and I rarely get pushback. I remember I posted something a while ago. I said, so, like, a bad coach, right? A bad coach, if you're late, they won't do anything to you, right? A good coach, if you're late, they'll punish you. But a great coach, if you're late, they'll punish you and then tell you why you can't be late, And again, I think you do the same thing. We always apply to, being a worker and a husband and a father, like you can't be late to work. You know what I'm saying? You can't be late to, picking up your son, because he doesn't care that you had a busy day. He just wants to be picked up and be loved by, his dad, And so I always try to relate what they're doing wrong or what they're doing right to what they're trying to become. And again, I think that's part of the reason they take it well, and they appreciate it.
So you give them a why, and you let them know that you love them and you're on their side and you're doing it out of their own best interest, right? So let me ask this, as first generation Japanese coming over, what ways have you experienced, and it may have been lessened by the school that you went into and so forth, but have you faced racism yourself? And it's a little unique, because here we have a country that we went to war with in World War II, within people's generation, right? My own grandfather got upset with me when I was just out of high school going into college, and I bought a Mazda, because why was I buying a Japanese car instead of an American car, right? Have you faced any of that, or has that not been an issue at all?
So first, I would like to say, really the racism I faced, and again, when you're younger, you're not as aware of these things, right? It's just the name calling, them making fun of your accent, that's pretty common, I feel like, with Asians, and then the whole, squinty eyes, and, I faced a good amount of that. Again, especially, I think the first few years, because I couldn't even speak English either. And so, like, there was nothing I could really say and, defend myself. And so, the first few years was pretty tough. I'll admit that. I did get a lot of that. And then I would say probably middle school on, of course, like, friends joke around, and, there's maybe rare cases where, someone would make a comment, right? But all in all, I would say it was just words and just a little bit of teasing, And again, after middle school on, it didn't really bother me, because, I knew people were joking or just ignorant, and by also face a lot less of that if it was a serious incident. In terms of opportunities, again, I think I posted this a couple weeks ago. I may have faced it, but I haven't noticed, because I feel like I've been given opportunities and I haven't yet been turned down for a job, that I've actually interviewed for. And I just, again, I think if you work hard and you treat people with respect and you learn how to I always tell our players, like, you got to have game, right? Like you not just with girls, but like, you got to have game with teachers, and you got to know how to talk to them and da 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 da. And I feel like I know how to do that as well. Like I always try to say thank you and please and yes sir, no sir, and because that's how my mom raised me, and that's culturally, we're taught to be like polite, and so that's been kind of ingrained in me. And so, like, again, working hard and just treating people with respect and obeying authority, even if you don't love it or like it or agree with it, like those things, again, we're trying to teach in football, like I've applied. And that's why, again, like I'm such a firm believer in the things that we preach, because again, I can only speak for myself. This is what I always tell the kids. Like, I'm not trying to brag when I tell you, like, I did this or that. Like, I'm telling you, like, this is what I did and it worked, and I'm trying to tell you my experience. And so, so like I said, sorry for the long answer, but I may have faced it in terms of opportunities and jobs, but I never felt it.
All right. What ideas do you have for our country to move forward during this time when race has really risen to the top and it's become a topic and it's divisive? How can we come together and improve things?
Yeah, man, that's a tough one, but I would say really trying to, again, just going off of my experience, Coach, I really didn't learn to appreciate and respect and build empathy for people of different, like, race and people from different socioeconomic status, people from different circumstances and backgrounds until I was entrenched into their lives. Again, like I had I don't know if I had one Hispanic friend, growing up, to be honest with you. Kings, it was mainly whites, Asians, and some African Americans, and so now, like, a few of my best friends are Hispanic because they coached with me at Bernstein, and they're the ones that moved up with me, and like, I didn't really know about their culture and appreciate their culture, and again, now they're like my best friends, and I would do anything for them, and vice versa. And then I didn't have a lot of African American friends either, And then now, like, some of the coaches are African American on our staff, and obviously a lot of our kids are African American, and and like going to their graduation party and meeting their family and their barbecue and learning their culture and and how they cook the food, like all that stuff, like just being entrenched in it and really trying to learn about them and building relationships. Like, I think that's the only way, to be honest with you. Like, you can go to protests. That's great. You can wear, BLM shirts or, post a bunch of things on Twitter. But until you actually go build a relationship and get to know them, I don't think I don't think you can truly, like, build empathy and try to help them. And so my answer to your question is to really, like, put yourself out there, even if it's uncomfortable, and really try to, get to know them, volunteer at, volunteer somewhere where, you'll learn, you'll encounter different cultures and races, and really try to get to know them. And again, getting to know them with the intentions of helping, not judging or
Yep.
pushing your agenda on them. Right. Because that's really what happened to me, Coach. Like I didn't want to go to Bernstein. That wasn't my first choice. I wanted to stay in San Diego, maybe at Cathedral, in the nice Catholic school, and win a bunch of championships. But, God put me at Bernstein. And I'm Coach, like I'm going to a Title I school in East Los Angeles. I'm teaching special ed. Like, like I was scared, but I trusted God, and look what's happened. Like I've been able to bless a bunch of people, and they blessed me, and like and again, because of that, those experiences, I feel like I've been able to break down barriers, and even in my own barriers, and build relationships, and really make deep impact into people's lives. And last thing, Coach, I always say, well, I don't say, I think it. I think people care about movements until it affects them. And again, I'm not like taking shots at people, because it's not normal or human nature, but I feel like a lot of people will take stands and say all these things until it affects them financially or affects their lives. And I think, again, I'm not saying you have to be miserable, but you have to be willing to be uncomfortable, and to bring the races together, and to bring that unity.
Awesome. Last thing, what gives you the most hope for the future moving forward?
Our kids. Yeah. I mean, again, I can only speak for the kids at, Lincoln. I work closely with them, but gosh, I mean, even at Bernstein, I've come away, especially again, being in the inner city setting for the last, like 13, 14 years. Kids are resilient, Coach. Like kids are so resilient and tougher than we give credit. And, and I see our kids, like they are so much more accepting than adults, and like, I don't care if it's like this like punk kid, like at Lincoln, that, not an athlete, but like just a punk kid, a troublemaker. But if like a kid is crying, that kid will go like say, "Hey, you okay?" Like, I mean, they're I don't know, they're just they have innocent hearts, and they're so accepting, I feel like, and they're resilient and tough, and just meeting with them still on Zoom, like they're still going, Coach, and yes, like the George Floyd stuff, that sucks, and the protests and all these things are terrible, not the protests, but what they're protesting for, and the racial divide and all that is terrible. But these kids just, keep showing up, and they want to get better, and they're resilient. Of course, some of them, I've talked to them, and they're hurt and they're angry, but they want to get better. And so just seeing our kids gives me hope. Like it's more the adults, that are the problem. I like, so.
Yeah, we are pretty blessed in the profession that we have, aren't we? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I just want to comment on a couple things, and then if there's any last comments that you have, I'll let you close us out. One, your mom clearly has made a tremendous impact. I mean, and the way that I have seen you honor her, I'll go to different places, and she's often right there, your biggest fan, rooting you on, and people know her. I mean, it's, hey, there's Coach's mom, right? And so I love the way that you have included her in things and continue to honor her. And then the other thing, people outside of the coaching ranks may not understand how difficult it is sometimes to get to build success in an inner city school because of finances, because of, kids having to go work jobs because they're helping provide for their family. There's so many different things, right? And to build a high school program where you get a large amount of people to commit and to be in the weight room like early in the morning or something, that's challenging in the best of schools. And what were the numbers that I saw you post this year? Like 60 plus guys at what, 6 a.m. workouts? Would you share what the number was briefly?
Yeah, we averaged between 60, 75 at 5:45 a.m. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that shows your commitment to them and the kids' belief in what you're doing. And then you mentioned that you had several coaches, your new best friends, your Hispanic friends that came up from California and followed you. That sometimes college programs like Big D1 with a lots of money, they'll have staffs that follow coaches around. But that to me shares what kind of mission that you're on. You're not just a football coach. You're there to impact lives, and you change people, and they want to be around that. And I just want to commend you for that. And you may not be told often enough what a great job you're doing, but you do a phenomenal job, and I respect the heck out of you. Thanks for what you do for people in Lincoln and around our state in our sport. Last word is yours.
I mean, I've pretty much, spoke everything that was on my heart, and I hope the answers were sufficient for you, Coach. Yeah, no, I just want to say thank you for having me, and this is a great opportunity. And I think it's important that we're transparent. That's why I said I'll answer anything. I think this is the right, and I appreciate you doing this whole thing. Just to get a perspective and get the word out there and educate people and, let people know how certain people are feeling and their opinions, because again, I think more we can listen to people, better we can understand and try to work together. And so really appreciate you doing this. I know you're not getting paid, but you're doing it because you want to help and you want to learn. And so you can do better as well, and so I appreciate that humility and this work you're doing. And I, again, really appreciate you having me on, Coach.
You bet. Thank you, Coach.